Hey guys, I wanna talk about something interesting. Actually, a different way of doing things with Godot. In this video, it's more going to be more talking. But I will show you one thing that I do that works. Like I'm going to try to explain, right? Um, and specifically how to use Godot as an entity component system. Maybe not. It's not an ECS. It's more like entity component ish, right? It's sort of like forcing Godot hierarchical tree structure to kind of work with Godot. Sorry, work with the with an entity components type. You know, like Unity, for example, does that, right? Like entity component system, right? It won't be necessarily system, and I'll explain to you why. It won't necessarily be entity component, but it'll be very close. It'll be like a weird hybrid between the two, right? Uh, you can call it whatever you want. A hierarchical tree entity component. It doesn't matter. But the point is that it's a different way of thinking about things, right? And it might actually help in certain situations. Um, like I said, the Unity does this, and I was actually doing some research about that. And people are saying that in Unity is not really a system; it's more like a entity component, but not. It's more like an EC than an ECS, and because you cannot really plug in anything into anything. Like you can't just like assemble any component with any other component to create any object, right? You're more you it's up to the programmer to decide what plugs into what or what works with what, right? Sort of interesting, right? So um, in a sense, what I'm doing is very similar to Unity, in a sense, but not quite. Like it's somewhat similar. Like you can actually force Godot to work like Unity uh, component, sort of, right? I guess it's sort of. I'll explain exactly what I mean. So in last video I was actually explaining about my the eight directional the sprite frame video, which you can watch if you want to. It's not really you can see more of my code, but um, anyways, I went over quickly about the PC control, about how I control my character, and how I have this node right here. Okay, it's called the PC underscore control, which is like which is essentially where all my player key control are situated. I should open this. Like I have like move forward, move back, move left, move right, sprint, jump. Jump doesn't work here, but yeah, zoom and use objects. Like I don't have everything yet, but I'm still creating more. But uh, I don't think I need this. Oh yeah, I do. Anyways, like opening doors or talking to people. These are using objects in the world, right? So anything that the player does would be stored in here, right? And what's interesting about this system is that I have a PC control. Um, I have a PC control, right, node that has all the player interactions, and this gets plugged into a character, right? And the character, and so the character gets modified and turned into a player, right? So this is not really the player actually. This is just the player controls, and this is not really the player. This is more like a generic character. But this and this together become the player, right? That's what's interesting. So this is not the player and this is not the player, but both of these are the player. But this is the player body, right? Because this turns it into the player body. Right? Actually, let's go look exactly how I do this. It's actually very simple, right? I just put this as a child, right? Right, and then when I enter the tree, so when it enters the tree, um, the parent gets saved as the player, right? So this becomes the player now, right? And uh, and then I flag the player as a PC player controlled character, right? Player controlled character. Um, PC will be player character, but it will be like so this thing here becomes a player character, right? But I cannot and then when I exit, I actually don't really need this, but when I exit tree, this is just to explain how I do this, right? So when I exit tree, then this removes the flag. And so essentially I can just swap bodies. Now this is the player. Now this is the player. You know, it's as easy as that, right? But what the problem is with Godot is that Godot is a hierarchical tree structure, right? Like I said before, and a hierarchical tree structure requires things to. It has a certain flow, and the flow is that this will be instantialized before this. Children get instantialized before parent. As far as I know, it's something like that, right? What that means is that anything that I do in here, okay, will be done first and then here, right? Okay, well, this one was originally like this, right? So this ready is called first, and then this ready is called, and then this ready, and then this one, and then the game starts, right? Well, what's the problem with that? The problem with that is that I'm trying to access certain functions, okay? Like say, for example, change the player's name, okay? And if I change the player's name to whatever this global's S name is the setting name. So this is what the player inputted in their settings, right? I want my player to be called blah blah blah, right? Okay. So I'm changing the player's name, what the player object in the game, right? Which is human3. I'm changing this object's name, what the what the what you guys would input as your name, right? Well, it does that first, and then it changes the name again to a default name, right? Why? Because this is run first, and then this. First you run this, and then you run this, right? So that's a problem, right? So what I came up with, a way to fix this is I came up with something called a delayed ready, right? Unfortunately, Godot doesn't allow you to delay your ready function, right? So I created a custom function called a delay ready, which I call a one shot. Okay, so I have a variable called a one shot over here, and then in the physics process, okay, the one shot by default is true, and then in the physics process, if the one shot is true, then set the one shot to false and call the delayed ready. So what does that mean? That means that this gets instantialized first, and then this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. So all this stuff gets instantialized in this order from child to parent. Okay, the game starts, and the first frame will run this, and because it runs the first frame and all this stuff already got initialized, then all this stuff, okay, will change. All this stuff here will actually affect the character and will change the character. So essentially, this gets the final word, so to speak, right? Okay. And like I said, this actually is a entity component system. In a sense, right? It's a type of entity component system, right? It's a type. Well, I'm plugging in this object that changes this parent. Okay, I'm plugging in this object here that changes the behavior, and you can actually do this with anything, right? You can create any type of object, like you want to create a tall character, a short character. You just create you just change the properties of the human, okay, with a tall way or a short way, and then you plug it in, so that character gets affected. You see, and what's interesting is that it doesn't really matter the order that this they run in, because these are all these are all components. They don't interact with each other. So if I add another object over here, they won't talk to one another, which is kind of like one of the drawbacks of entity component. Actually, is that the components don't really communicate with one another. But you can. But the point is, I guess the point is that you can actually use Godot in a way that was not meant to be used, which is turning this hierarchical tree structure, so turning the children into components that plug into the parent. Well, the difference is that in an entity component system, you would combine all these different components to create an object, while here I have kind of like a matrix or a generic object that you plug things into. Right? So you would need a parent object that you plug things into. But you could call this parent object like a generic entity, generic object, and then you can plug in all these different things, and then you create your own object. But it's possible, right? The point is that it's possible. You can actually do it like Unity does it, like in a sense, right? So you can create. So I can create more of these entities, and in fact, my human. Oh, hold on, let me see. In fact, my human, effects. Oh, I don't have an effect here. Well, anyways, the effects. The effects here, right? So the effects right here will actually work exactly the same way. It will be like standalone effect object, okay, that has a preset uh, kind of like effect, right? So the effect object will be, say, preset to be slowness, right? So it'll be like, okay, slowness, add a generic slowness effect on the character. So they will be added to effects here, and then that slowness will modify human, okay? And then we'll have a timer, and then the timer ticks, tick, 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 and then when timer runs out, we'll remove and it will modify the human back. Right? That's kind of the idea, right? So the idea is that it will be able to how do you call it? Like it will be like a child that modifies the parent, right? It will be like plugged into it. It's a similar system, right? It's kind of interesting, right? But in this case, I have a generic container that what I will put all these effects. So you would modify the whole thing. Like you would modify the whole thing. But it's the same idea, right? The same idea. You have these objects. So normally people would actually do it, all that in code, right? We'll have all this code here, and then you would have all these different effect listings, and they will be like, well, I want to create like effect blah blah blah. So then you will look in some array, but you don't have to do that. You can actually use Godot's tree structure in a way that was not meant to be used, which each node becomes each node can become like a part of the bigger picture, or part of the creature, right? You know. Anyways, yeah, it's just an idea. Just thought that's all I wanted to say. And I'll resume making. I want for I I still have work to do on my game, like a lot of work to do, and a lot of this code is not really like ready for being viewed by being seen by people. So I apologize for any errors or mistakes in the code, but it's mostly about the concept that I'm trying to explain, right? So what do I want to say? Thank you very much for the likes and for the views, and for people who watch my videos. Thank you very much, and for the comments. And I'm hoping to make a few more videos in the future. I'm trying to make videos that are more relevant to Godot, stuff that hasn't really been stuff that's useful, I guess, and showing how I do my game, and different ways of thinking about it. Anyways, that's all. Peace. Thank you.